Today we're going to be talking about housekeeping. And housekeeping is one of the most important departments in any single hotel. The reason is because housekeeping is the touch point or one of the greatest touch points that every single guest interacts with, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And it's one of the biggest driving factors of whether you have good reviews or bad reviews. If you go check any hotel's reviews, 50% of complaints or remarks are around housekeeping. This is why you need to get your housekeeping system to be impeccable. And today, in today's video, what I'm going to teach you is how to build your housekeeping system so that you are not involved in the whole entire process. Our goal here is to build staffs who deliver consistent results all the time. Let's begin. So there's 5 components of housekeeping, and you need to get 5 of these absolutely dialed in. If any one of these 5 systems are broken, you as the hotel owner have to step in every single time to solve majority of the issues. Now, what are these 5 components? The first one is checklist, meaning what gets done. The second one is your training, basically how you train staffs to basically learn your standards. The third one is accountability. How do you verify and not micromanage? The fourth one is your KPIs tracker. What this is how to catch problems before guests do. The 5 is technology. Basically, how do you manage all of this? Now, some of this you might not understand. It's okay. I'll explain every single one of them so you understand. So the first one we're going to start with is your checklist. This is basically what gets done. Now, you have to understand you must have a written, detailed task of what needs to be done in your hotel. Now, typically what a lot of people or what a lot of hotel owners have is simply having instructions telling staffs, oh, go clean the room, clean the bathroom. Well, that's not enough. It has to be detailed and it has to be well thought out. And you must have procedures. Now, you might be thinking, okay, all right, I understand the importance of having a checklist. But what should be in the checklist? Now, that's what we're going to talk about here. If you want to have a great checklist, all of this must be in it. Now, the first thing you need to have in your checklist is your room entry procedure. The reason for this is so you can avoid walking in on guests and causing a lot of awkward situations. So every single staff, every single housekeeping staff must know the proper way to enter a room. And you must have this procedure down and you have to explain it to them. And it must be clearly written. So you want to explain to your staff, you need to knock, then announce yourself, then wait 30 seconds, knock again before entering to ensure the room is empty before they begin their task. This is very, very important. The next thing you want to have is a cleaning sequence. This is basically the exact order they need to follow to clean a room. And it's for so many reasons. The reason number one is that it creates more efficiency, meaning that they know exactly what steps to follow. Therefore, when it comes to operational efficiency, to make things faster, you can increase the speed because there's a system, there's a sequence. Now, you can explain to them how the order follows, depending on your situation. So it'll be stripping the bed, spray the bathroom, and let the chemical sit, dust, make the bed, then wash the bathrooms, then sweep the floor. If they do this in any other order, for example, if they go start sweeping the floor before they do anything else, guess what? The dust are all over the bed, causes problems. You see how this is important. The order is very important. And also, if you have a proper sequence, it's easy for you to scale the speed in which the staffs are able to clean the rooms because there is a proper sequence they should follow. The next one is restocking standards. And what you're trying to avoid here is avoid your staffs having to guess how many items go where, things like that is what you want to avoid. You want to clearly state what items goes where, how many of those items go to that position. You need to clearly state it. So if it's 2 towels, they go on this position. You have 2 hand towels, they go here. You have 3 coffee pods, they sit here. You have 2 bottled water, they sit here. That's how clearly you want to have your restocking standards. Next is cart setup. The reason for this is basically every housekeeper should have their own cart so that they can go stock up on all the essentials they need to properly clean a room. They should be able to stock up once and clean their entire section. The reason for this is so that we avoid staffs running all over the place, all over the hotel, creating chaos, number one. And number two, it should increase their efficiency and the speed in which they clean rooms. That's why this is important. So you need to have this pre-ready for them every single day, or tell them, give them the right instructions on how to build their housekeeping cart. Next is maintenance reporting. Now, this is absolutely important because your housekeepers are your early signs warners. Because if something is going wrong in the room, the housekeepers are always there every single day, and they should be the one telling you what needs to be fixed or where there's issues. So you should have a mini list for them to go through to let you know, or to inspect a particular room to let you know when something is wrong. They should be able to check the bulbs, the faucets if it's leaking, stains on the bed sheets, if there's any issues with the electronics, so your TVs, your air conditions, your HVACs. They should be the ones checking this because you don't want your guest finding out. You want your housekeepers to find out the problem first. So that's why this is important. So every housekeeper must have a maintenance checklist that they must use for every room. Next is guest communication. Now, this one is very important, and I'll explain why it's important. Because you would notice that a lot of housekeepers are very awkward at communicating with staffs. And I get it, they apply to be housekeepers and not be front desk agents that has to interact with customers. But listen, just because they're housekeepers doesn't mean that your customer service automatically is no longer needed because they're housekeepers. No, the customer service still needs to be your main priority throughout your whole hotel. Every staff must know how to communicate with the customer, especially the ones who are front facing. And majority of the times, housekeepers are. So to avoid awkward situations or awkward moments, because they typically end up caught in most typically awkward conditions whenever they have to interact with customers. So what you must do is create a script for your housekeepers so that they know exactly what to say whenever they encounter a customer. You know, something like very simple. It's simple. Oh, hi, good morning. I'm just finishing up with the room. Would you like me to come back? Like if they're cleaning the room and a customer walks in. A simple script that you can create and give to them so that they know what to say whenever they encounter a customer. Next is lost and found. Now, the reason for this is because you want to avoid any situation that can lead to you being accused of theft or your organization being accused of theft or face any liability issues. So therefore, the ways in which you handle guest property that have been left behind is very important. You have to be able to document or clearly tell your staff how to document, where to store items, and who to notify whenever an item is being left behind. This process must be properly fine-tuned because it can lead to a lot of issues down the line if not properly done. The next thing you want to do is self-spot check. And why is this important? Every housekeeping staff should be able to inspect the rooms themselves before a supervisor goes to check. This is important because it builds ownership, right? So they need to be able to see where things go wrong first before a supervisor comes in. That's a spot check. Next is checkout or stayover procedures. Now, you need to explain, because your checklist, it needs to be clear basically how a housekeeping staff needs to handle a full checkout, meaning how they do a full turnover, or if it's a stayover, they need to know the procedure for light service. They need to know the difference and they need to know what it entails. So that's what you need to do with this. Next one we're going to talk about is how to train your staff so that they can maintain the standards of your hotel. So let's go to the next one. So we're in step 2, which is basically how staffs learn standards. And this is your training. Now, most hotel owners don't really train. They just tell people what to do. And this does not create consistency and it doesn't maintain standards. Real training is you using the Performance Replication Method. And this is how you achieve consistency with your staffs. It's basically how you go from having chaotic staffs to having professionals. And this method is used by Marriott, Hilton, and every single luxury hotel. This is how they train their staffs. So, what does this involve? Number one, step one, which is clarity. What this means is that you need to write down exactly what clean looks like for your hotel. You need to write down the exact standards, specific standards that you are upholding for your hotel. So, because the reason why is because if you don't do this, staffs begin to fill in the blank of what they think it should look like. You know, so you have to clearly state what a clean bed looks like. Have a picture of that. How do you fold your towels? You need to have that. What amenities do you put in the room? You need to have that clearly. Typically, people have pictures of what this looks like so that they can always have access to it, so that they can see that. Two, in the training process is that you want to demonstrate to the staff. You show them and instead of just telling them. Now, what you want to do is you want to either have them watch you do the actual task, the actual cleaning of the room, or you can show them a video of someone doing that to the right standards. Because what you want is you want to show them the actual standard in action so that they can replicate the same thing. And once you've done that, then you want to go to step three, which is rehearse. You want them to clean the room and then you watch. And this typically takes a lot of time. A lot of owners, a lot of hotel owners skip this step simply because it's tedious, but I promise you it pays off in the long run. So while you're watching them, the reason for this is so that you can catch mistakes, because a lot of cleaners can come in with their own preconceived notion of how things used to be done at their previous hotel, but that is not your new hotel standards, right? So they cannot bring what they've been doing to your own hotel. So you need to watch those things and watch mistakes and then correct them right there and there. So once you've done this, then you can go to step four, which is where you begin to reinforce. What you want to do is you want to repeat the standard so much that it becomes a habit, right? And you do this, you keep observing until it becomes genuine habit. So you want to make sure that you're observing what they're doing, making sure they're repeating the same process correctly over and over and over again. Correctly now. Step five is where you begin to verify, because all of this will be wasted if you do not have a way to verify. And what does that mean? Meaning that after training, you want to have an ongoing verification process. Because if you don't have an ongoing verification process, standards will begin to drift. That's typically how life happens. The law of entropy begins to take place. People begin to take shortcuts and the quality begins to drop. So you need to have a way of going in to check what everybody's doing is up to the brand standards. And what does this entail? It means that you should have to have weekly pop-ups where you go in and you inspect certain rooms to make sure that it's cleaned up to the right standards. Things like that is what you want to incorporate to make sure that your team are adhering to standards. And if you replicate this exact training method, what you end up having is professionals. And you have consistency in the way things are done and impact your hotel reviews because you're constantly delivering the right thing to your customers. So we'll go to the next one. Now we're at accountability, basically how to verify and not micromanage. So the whole objective of this section here is for you to stop micromanaging, which creates chaos, and rather have accountability. Now, how do you build something like this? Now, this is what all the big hotel luxury chains do, and it's something that you can replicate for yourself. Now, what you want to do is build accountability and not micromanage. Now, your goal here is to create enough oversight where you maintain quality. That's your whole objective here. Now, how do you do this? You do this by one, creating supervisor sign-off. So if you do have a supervisor or a housekeeping manager, what you want them to do is be able to go in and do a quick verification, something that takes about 60 seconds of the room to make sure that they are following the checklist, the standards are being met. Now, What you want is, the objective of this is to be able to find problems before your guests do. That's why this is important, right? So you create something like this. The next thing you want to have is have weekly spot checks. You want to check 3 to 5 rooms weekly. And what I mean, check them, I mean thorough inspection after they've been cleaned. Very detailed inspection. What this does is that it keeps everyone being honest, because they know that there's going to be an inspection for the work that they have done. So when staffs know this, they keep every single room super clean, because they know the room might fall on the inspection and things, it keeps them in check. That's why this is important. The next one is, and this is the cheat code, this is one of the most important things in regards to accountability, is self-accountability. Your staffs should be able to hold themselves accountable to your standards, which they already know what it is if you followed all the steps that we've been coming here. And how do you do this? Is by having them commit their name to paper, meaning that you have a checklist in which they sign their name to say that they have completely done this role, right? And there's a paper attached to it, meaning that if there's something wrong, there's a paper trail to trace them back to being accountable for that particular rule. Because when someone knows that you're going to check their work, they refuse to cut corners, because they know what the repercussions will be. So, for example, if you get a review for room 503 and you know that everybody has a checklist that they sign off, you're able to find out who cleaned room 503. And that way you'll be able to know what particular actions need to be taken for that particular staff, right? So that's what this is important. And if you have this, this reduces the amount of stress that you have, because a lot of hotel owners go 2 routes. It's either they over check, meaning that they are micromanaging, meaning they're checking every room, they're going over and over and again, and this causes a lot of stress. Or you can simply build accountability like this that creates peace and creates independence. So those are 2 routes you need to go. And the whole objective here is so that you maintain your standards. Keep that in mind. We'll move to the next one. The next component will be our KPI trackers. Now, this is important because we need to catch issues or find out where things are broken in our systems way before our customers do, right? So what you want to do is track certain numbers, and these are key indicators to tell you what you need to focus on. That's what your key performance index is for. So here are the 4 numbers that you need to track, and we're going to find out how to calculate them and what they stand for. So the first thing you want to track is your costs per occupied room. Now, I would explain why this is actually one of the most important numbers that you need to keep in mind of. So first, the way you calculate this is by doing your total cost of supply divided by the total rooms sold. And that gives you your cost per occupied room. Now, the variation in this number is what's going to give you information on what you need to focus on or what you need to fix. Take, for example, you spend $3,000 monthly on your supplies for housekeeping, and then you sold only 600 rooms. Now, you divide that, and then you get $5, meaning that the cost per room is $5. Now, if this number goes high all of a sudden and your room sold stays the same, it tells you something. It tells you that there's either theft or there's either wastage or your vendors have increased the prices. So now you know what to focus on. You understand why this is important? Good. Now, the second thing you want to track is your minutes per room, meaning how long does it take for a housekeeping staff to clean one room. Now, the typical average industry standard is typically 25 to 35 minutes, depending on the size of the room that they're cleaning. Now, if a staff member, and you want to track it by staff, if a staff member is too slow and takes about 45 minutes to clean a room, well, they should tell you something. It's either the training is bad or the sequence in which they're working or doing the task is wrong, or they don't have the resources to do the task. So meaning they could be going back to supply closets every single time to get more resources to clean their room, which is making them spend more time cleaning. So what happens if a staff member is too fast? For example, if a staff member spends 15 minutes on cleaning a room, well, it should tell you something. The room might be clean, but they'll be taking a lot of shortcuts, right? So you want to keep that in mind. So now you know how to approach each of the staff member. Good. The third thing you want to track is rooms reclean. Basically, it's you want to track your callback rate, meaning if a room gets cleaned once and it's been inspected, how many times does it get recalled? Meaning that they have to go in and do a double clean, right? So you want to track this for each individual person, and also you want to track for the whole entire team. Now, if it's an individual who has a high callback rate, well, you need to know that for that individual, the train is broken and you need to fix your train and make sure you train them better. If it's your whole team that has a high callback rate, you know that your checklist is broken or your verification process of inspection is broken, right? So that's what that does. Now, the fourth one is cleanliness mentioned in reviews. Now, you want to go over your reviews that you get online and see how many of them mentions your room cleanliness. And you want to track if they're negative or positive, and that should tell you what to do or what to fix in the hotel. So these are the four components that you need to track when it comes to your KPI. Now, I do have all of this in an Excel sheet. You don't have to go out and make it yourself. Just click the link and download it. And now we're going to move to the fifth one, technology. So number 5 would be technology. Basically, how to manage all of this, everything we've built so far. Now, there's 2 ways you can go about it. Now, you can either do it manual, so that's the manual option. And what does that look like is having printed checklists, print of your SOPs, create a sign-off sheet in which every staff have to check that they've completed certain tasks. You could also create a cleaning standards with photo. I spoke to someone on LinkedIn who mentioned that they created almost 150-page worth of cleaning standards with photos and everything. That's pretty incredible, and it's something that you could do for yourself too as well. The only thing is that it just takes time. That's the only aspect of this, because you have to create every single one of this. For example, if you're creating your cleaning standards, you take pictures of how a bed should look like, put it in the cleaning standard sheets, and put all the explanation on what task needs to be done. And you do that for every single aspect of the housekeeping job. The good thing is that this would cost you absolutely nothing to do. So just time, and you could create them like this. The next option will be to go digital. What you can use is just a simple app, and then it just marks tasks as completed. So every staff would go around. If they don't clean the room, they could just mark as complete, take certain pictures, and upload for verification. The reason why I love this is because I could operate this remotely and I could verify remotely. Take, for example, if my housekeeper has done the bed, they can simply take a picture, upload it to the app, and I see it, and I just simply hit verify, and I know that the task has been done properly up to a standard that I want. So it doesn't matter what options you pick. The goal here is just have a system. And once you've picked the system, just make sure it's consistent. That's all. That's the whole point of this. So now, once you've done all of this 5 components, the great thing is that what you're going to have is that you're going to have consistent reviews, simply because you are delivering consistent results, right? Your brand reputation is going to significantly improve because people know you are the place who they get the great stuff from. So, for example, if you go to a restaurant and you always get great meals every single time, whoever is on shift or whoever's cooking that day, you want to go back to that same restaurant over and over again. So that's what you want to do for your hotel. What you're going to do is, by accomplishing all of this, you will no longer have chaos. You rather have professionals who are working in your hotel. And with this, you no longer have to micromanage and stress. You now have an accountability built into your system, and you have peace. If you want all of this, you don't have to start from scratch. I've already built all of this. So just click on the link below and you can just simply download it for yourself. Cheers.